Hello everybody, what's up and welcome back. Here with me, Shapeless, aka the Game Tamer, and today we will have a decently sized, I suppose, discussion about a comparison I'd like to make, and a comparison me and my friends like to make, which is between the semi-parallels of Blazblue Cross Tag Battle and DBZ. So, the thing is DBZ came in and took a niche which was left abandoned basically by Marvel 3 in the still growing fighting game community. Now a lot of people would like to say that Marvel probably didn't die with Marvel 3 simply because Marvel Infinite was a thing, but Marvel Infinite, in my opinion and in a couple of people that I know's opinion, tanked in a way that was irreparable damage to the overall view on that franchise almost. Simply because it seemed like Marvel Infinite was just... they didn't try very hard. So, something can be said similarly to Blazblue, where we have, I believe it was half the roster was DLC, where if it was as expensive of DLC as maybe Dragon Ball FighterZ, it probably wouldn't have done even as well as it did. Mainly because the characters would have been almost inaccessible. Like $5 per character would have been nuts, but instead it's $5 for 3 characters, which in my opinion is a little bit better. I feel like them adding a 5th franchise, which got revealed over EVO, was ballsy. Because I feel like they have a lot of roster that they can still fill out, especially in the Ruby side. But that's a story for a different can of worms for a different time. DBZ is doing amazing for itself. DBZ is a great game. Nothing in this discussion is to diminish anyone's want to play either of these games. Blazblue is a fantastic game, as is DBZ. DBZ is a more put together game currently, I feel, but BB Tag has much more variety in my opinion. As you can see, I have 2 tier lists up. The tier lists, one of which I made myself, which is the Blazblue Cross Tag tier list, which I've gotten a lot of input from a lot of higher up streamers and a lot of people who play at like the Master to Grandmaster ranking, just from what they see. And the other one is just a probably one of the more recent tier lists for the post patch, which was the big patch that kind of pushed everybody back down that was S tier back into the mix, which I feel was a very, very needed and very welcome change to the game in my opinion. It scrunched the game down to tiers that are almost similar to Blazblue, and I'll explain that as well in a moment. Now, Blazblue has more variety, as you heard me say, and that's because a lot of the characters aren't bad. There's not a tier list to the extent that something like, for instance, like Hit Beerus, where Beerus is never used, or Krillin, where Krillin is almost never used, or Hit, apparently. I mean, Hit's just predictable in my opinion. Just after a little while, he gets predictable because you know how he has to open you up. Where you have something, the only similar parallel in Blazblue Tag is Yukiko. Yukiko started being this really big character because she could heal. That was a big deal. But soon she fell off. Her zoning is okay. Her zoning is good, but it's very lateral. It's very predictable. And you can get around it fairly easily. Her range is good, though. So, the way I have the tiers set up, as you can see in the Blazblue one, it's top tier to high tier. The way I did this is it's kind of like a double high here. We have the top tier, which is like your S and A's, and then your high tiers, which are your high A's to your mid A's to high B's. And then everything in the middle is kind of just the median line that flows back from assist and pressure to lacking, which I don't have up on the screen. Lacking is just they're lacking 1 or 2 things that really give them that edge. And the only reason I have Azrael where he is, which is homeboy here right in the center, is because I don't play enough against him, and I don't play him enough personally to really have a good enough opinion to put him somewhere. So the reason that I say that Blazblue doesn't get enough love is probably because a lot of people don't... Maybe not a lot of people don't. Just because DBZ just does seemingly everything it tries to do better. And Arc Systems even said in an interview that they put a lot, if not too many, of their resources into DBZ. Now, was that a bad thing? Clearly not. They've broken records with this game. So it's definitely worth to put their money in it. But they also said in the same interview that they did sort of rush BlazBlue, which is why another reason I feel that half the game was DLC. Now, that being stated, both of these games are still very good, but I don't feel there's as much variety in DBZ as there is in BlazBlue. Reasons being, DBZ, you have your weak support and you have your strong support. The reason that is because every character has one assist. In BlazBlue, each character has 3 assists. A back assist, which is generally an invulnerable DP, a neutral assist, which is generally advancing, and a forward assist, which can be anything from a projectile to just a forward rush one-hit move. And that makes every character viable as if not a point character, then at least a solid support character. So it opens the game up to much more character variety than something like DBZ, where it's like, oh, for instance, like if Gohan was a great point character but had a awful assist, he wouldn't be as high up. However, you have something like, for instance, Jubei, who doesn't have great normals, has solid mix-up, and has 3 pretty solid assists. And he has 1 really good assist in a fireball that's like large and rolls very slow and bounces. Like it's good. It's very good. And a lot of the characters in the mid could be challenged to put up higher in the list, but up towards the high tier area. A lot of people probably will argue about Merkava in his position, being, as I just have him kind of as the top of the high tier. But the only reason I feel like he doesn't is because once he gets out of his range that he wants to be in, the way generally he tries to get back in is either run or air dash. And his air dash has a hitbox, which means I don't believe he can block out of it. So you end up just flying into a lot of things that people are setting up for you. And I feel like that is a large glaring weakness that a lot of people don't see. Then you have, of course, your top tiers. You have your rubies. You have your common Gordos, who can be dealt with. Gordo can be dealt with fairly simply. Just stay out of general range of his 5B. If you have to get in the range of his 5B, make sure that you do it safely. One of your assists, I'm sure, will allow you to do it. I still have problems with Gordo from time to time. I still have problems with Jin from time to time. Aurier has a lot of good tools. Pretty much every character in this top tier area has what is called a solid 5A or 5B. 5 is just neutral, if my memory precedes me, where they just have a very solid standing button that reaches far and is very fast, or just reaches very far and can be comboed off of. Ruby has, I believe, both, and is just all-around, has been probably one of the most well-rounded high-tier characters since the game's launch, which isn't bad, but is bad because you see so many rubies. But it's not bad because you get used to playing rubies eventually, and it's like, okay, you kind of get to know what they're gonna do, but that's when the assists come in, and like a ruby with a Gordo assist can be played completely differently than a ruby with like a Jubei or a Labras assist, where they have these fireballs instead of the actual character moving. They have this projectile that you just kind of have to respect instead of being able to challenge something like a character. So it adds this weird little mind game where certain characters can be higher tier with certain supports. And that's similar for something like DBZ as well, where, like, for instance, you can play something low tier with 2 top tiers and make it work if you're good with the low tier. But you still have those 2 top tiers. In BlazBlue, I don't feel you're as pushed into almost having to use one of the top tiers. There's very few teams that I've seen, mostly at EVO, that didn't have a Bardock, a Cell, a Gohan, or a Gotenks. And which, in my opinion, are 3 of the, or a Kid Buu, which are probably the 4 strongest, in my opinion, maybe. At least Bardock, Cell, Gohan, and Kid Buu are probably the 4 strongest characters in that game at the time of EVO. And even now are still fairly high on some people's tier list, as you can see. But I just want to say that I probably wanted to wrap this up by saying that I don't feel BlazBlue shouldn't get attention simply because of how it had to be rushed. They're both by basically the same company, and even the company said that they put more resources into one than the other, so it's to be expected. But there's just so much fluidity and customizability to how you can play BlazBlue over how you can play Dragon Ball, which for me doesn't quite equal a better game to me. Like, I still have more fun playing BlazBlue than I do playing DBZ, and that's just my opinion, though. If you guys have personal opinions, I want to hear them. I would love to hear you guys' opinions on tiers, but for the most part, DBZ has almost a set tier list where a lot of characters are going to be used because of their assists, and a lot of characters aren't because their assists are bad, but they're not as good at point characters as some others. So they'll get niched out. And eventually we might see more variety given the factors of this patch, because this patch was great for the game. Like, for the health of the game overall, beautiful. Way to go, Arc Systems. Great job. BlazBlue, however, there's like maybe 4 or 5 characters that could be considered maybe S tier. And then the rest of the characters, minus like Linne because of damage, Yukiko because of utility, and like Kanji or Jubei maybe because of like ranges. But mainly just Linne and Yukiko for just simple purposes of being... Yukiko just got overplayed, and now everybody knows how to play against her. And Linne just doesn't have the damage. She has the mix-up potential, she just doesn't quite have the damage, where it's like she has to try so hard to get 5k out of a combo, where most characters can just do it. And it's rough. Now is it like, okay, you have excellent execution, you can get a lot of damage, you can get some more damage, but not a lot of damage. So that is my comparison between the two games. I really feel like you guys should try them both out. Hopefully Arc Systems puts BlazBlue on sale soon. I really feel like it would be good for the game. Or if when they announce this fifth addition to the game franchise-wise, that they release the game again as a completed game. Like with all 5 franchises and the excess characters. I wouldn't even matter if it was like a $60, $65 normal game, because this game came out at I think $45 or $50 because half the game was DLC. So they even knew. But that should be it for everything this game, guys. Thank you all for watching, if you did watch this entire time. I know I tend to drag on, but hopefully you guys can take a look at the overall kind of just the setup that I feel like both of these games have tier-wise, and really take that into you guys' lab sessions and maybe work things out. I really hope all of you the best in your ranked games. I hope all of you the best in your casuals, finding that character, finding that team that just kind of works for you. But once again, and as always, guys, you all stay tame. I will attempt to do the same, and I'll see you all again soon.